Folks, welcome inside the Brady Broadcasting Studio at 25 East Glen. This is the Jake Feinberg Show. Thank you so much for being part of the program today. And it's nice to welcome back to the program guitarist John McLaughlin, just back from a trip to Germany. John, welcome back.
Yeah, well, it was Vienna, Austria, Jake. Yeah, I mean, anybody could find it on the internet. It's called a life ball. Yeah, no, it was a great trip.
That piece of music, John, has given me so much tranquility in my life in so many hard times. It was probably the first album I picked up, but I want to ask you, is that Follow Your Heart or is that Arjun's Bag?
Well, they kind of like came from basically the same tune, but I didn't like the first. The first title was just like, I was hanging out with a guy, a Dutch bass player called Arjun, and but it was never recorded. I mean, it was never even registered, I don't think. So actually, when the first time opportunity I had to play it, to record it, was with Joe Farrell on an album that he invited me on. The Chick was on it, Jack DeJohnette was on it.
Song of the Wind.
Done it at the Rudy Van Gelder studio in 1969, yeah.
Yeah, it was called Song of the Wind was the album. But are you aware that Arjun's Bag is on Extrapolation? That was an album you made for Polydor.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
Because I was going to say, I was like, if I ever get to...
One and only time in my life, I give him one name, two titles.
Tell me though, like...
It's called recycling, Jake.
Jake? No, but it's not recycling, because this tune, your personality was directly into that solo, but both tunes, they are similar, but I just find it interesting. I say, how is it that this sort of innocuous tune that John wrote for a bass player, Arjun Gorder, how did it get over to Joe Farrell to say, let's put that on my album? How did he even hear that? You say I was working on? How did it happen?
It was out of the blue, Jake, because Joe invited me to the session there. I was really happy because I knew Joe when he was with Elvin's quartet.
Mm-hmm.
And I got to see them when they came to Europe the first time, and I thought, well, I mean, because there's Joe playing tenor sax with Elvin, and you immediately think of Coltrane, with the biggest shoes in the world to fill. But Joe was genial, so that he wasn't trying. He was under no. I felt he was just really like totally himself, and very happy to be himself, and very happy to play with Elvin, which of course I got to experience later. It was wonderful. What a joy to play with Elvin. In any event, I think it must have been Chick that told him about me, because Chick was on the date, and by that time, because I met Chick the first day I arrived in New York, and we got really tight right away. And I think he told Joe about me, and Joe called me up and said, we want to do a date? Are you kidding? So we're in the middle of the session, and all of a sudden Joe says, well, I don't have any more tunes, Anybody got any tunes? And he looked at me, he said, you got a tune, John? I said, yeah, I got a tune, but it's kind of weird. It's an 11. He says, that's fine with me. I said, it's an E. It's like a monster key for tenor sax. I'll never forget once I wrote a tune called what's it called? Pacific something that Miles recorded in the end. But I remember Miles came up to me with that tune and he said, what key is it in, John? And I said, it's in F sharp, Miles. He said, if it's in F sharp, the trumpet stays in the case.
Yeah, right.
So So, of course, got transposed. Pacific, oh man, I forget the name. I don't even forget the name of my own tune now. What are you going to do?
No,
That's a
no, we're
long
going to
time
have to
ago.
do some research on this.
Anyway, and that was it. Joe asked around for tunes, and I came up with that, and he loved it. I ran it down. He said, "No, I want to do it." So I mean, that was a thrill for me. But it was really kind of an accident,
Well, and these accidents,
a happy accident. Yeah, but a lot of accidents are happy in music anyway. Stuff happens on a session that you don't really expect, and it can be so nice, such a nice surprise. It's really refreshing. I mean, you have some, catastrophes in the studio where it all falls apart. But everybody has that. I even have some outtakes of Coltrane where all of a sudden they're playing away and it all falls apart. It all falls to pieces. What are you going to do? It happens to everybody. So,
how
don't worry about it. You pick up the pieces and keep going.
I want to ask you. I interviewed Airto Moriera, and when he came to New York, he came there around the same time that you did, and he told me this story about going to these. He spoke some Spanish, and he would go to
Went to
these.
where?
He,
Sorry?
he spoke Spanish, so he went to these Spanish, these Latin clubs to play, and they said, no, 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 you cannot play. Go sit in the corner, and you can shake your shaker, no problem, but you cannot be on stage. So, who discovered him? But guys like Walter Booker, Roy McCurdy, ultimately Miles. But I want to ask you, when you came to the States, who embraced you right away? I think my overarching question is that Airto's own brothers wouldn't accept him. But in your case, who embraced you right when you came here?
Yeah, but I was really lucky because I came with the invitation from Tony Williams.
Hmm.
The late great Tony Williams.
Hmm.
Well, even today, nobody plays like Tony. The closest drummer to Tony is Cindy Blackman. But to have an invite from Tony was I mean, I'm over there in Europe and doing some nice gigs, but let's not equate the European jazz scene with the American jazz scene. Yeah, now yes, there's a lot more kind of balance between the two continents. But in the '60s, not at all. America, I mean, you have no idea. Since I'm 15, all I dreamt about was going to New York, New York, New York. Because not only New York, Harlem,
Hmm.
because that was the heart
Mhm.
of jazz. That was where jazz was born, and that's where, and that was my music. So when I first of all, when I arrived in America, I almost kissed the ground. And then that night, Tony met at the airport, and he was playing with Miles that night up in Harlem. And so I was already, by the first day, I was in Harlem. And that's why I met Miles that night. Next day I saw him again is when he invited me to play in a silent way. I mean, how lucky can you get?
That's
I mean,
that's incredible.
It's
What?
like it's like your dream come true, literally, Jake. I mean, it doesn't get better than that.
Do you?
So I was like welcomed, even though I wasn't making pennies. I was really struggling to survive, but Miles helped me more than anyone, and he put money in my pocket, with just like make sure you eat, make sure you get by, pay your rent. Because working with Tony in those days, playing clubs, making $20 a night. I mean, it's hard to survive. But and of course with a combination of playing with Tony, so I was welcomed from an artistic musical point of view. I mean, but nevertheless, it was a real struggle to survive the first year in America. It was tough. I mean, jazz has always been marginal. Miles making money, Coltrane made money. The big jazz stars. I mean, not fortunes like the pop people, but Nevertheless, I mean, good earnings, records, royalties, that's gone. That's another thing that's gone. But we were not, as a jazz musician, if you're really looking to make money, then you're in the wrong business. You know what I'm saying?
I know.
You're there really for love, Jake, and that's it. And if you can make a living, hey, I mean, great. That's great. If you got lucky like me, I mean, then what I say, it's a dream come true.
I want to go back to what you said in our first interview. I'm looking at my own evolution, and I say to myself, okay, I have love and I have devotion, but I am nowhere near surrender because even last night, as I sit there reading the liner notes by Sri
Well,
Chinmoy,
in what sense are you speaking, Jake?
what I'm saying is what I'm trying to explain is that I can't be at peace or even see all the stuff that I've already done. I only want to pursue stuff I have not done. And my question for you is, at a certain point, okay, granted, you got there making $20 a night, but when you got firmly established, had record contracts, and were making money, how did you surrender? Did you get to a point where you realized that you were not even focusing on what you were doing at the present moment and you were just concerned about things you wanted to do in the future? That's where I'm at. I can't surrender, John. And I'm just saying, I was thinking last night, has John been able to surrender completely? Or is that something that you continue to battle with? Because to me, I read these notes and that's where I'm at. I just want to marinate now, and it's hard.
Well, nobody ever said it was easy, man. I mean, to be able to be a free spirit in the true sense of the word, I think you have to surrender just to what happens around you, because you cannot fight what is. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So the effort of trying to fight what is a waste of time. All we can do, the only thing we can change, in my opinion, the only thing we can change in this world is ourselves. And the power of the will and the power of dedication, the power of perseverance are all related to really how much you love what you do, how much you care about what you do, and how much attention you give to that, how much care you give to that. Whatever you do, it's like, remember I spoke about in the lesson about this question to my guru, my meditation guru, Sri Chinmoy, because and when he answered, you could sweep the street. If you sweep the street with real beauty, elegance, and eloquence, then you're in the right place. You know what I'm saying? It's just the same as playing music. What's important is how do you do it? With what love and what affection and dedication do you do what you do? Even washing dishes. You know what I'm saying? It's not what we do, it's how we do it. And the thing is, how can you worry about tomorrow? The only day we have is now. Not even day. The only moment we have is this very moment. So if we really live fully this moment, then tomorrow will take care of itself. Even Jesus said that. You just take care of what's in your hand, and tomorrow will take care of itself. But it's how we deal from moment to moment, how we live really from moment to moment, is that's all important. And because we see situations and there's all this stress with the modern life and anxiety, and they're out in a way. What's outside is what it is. We cannot control really what's going on outside. We have to surrender to life as it's dealt us. You know what I'm saying? What we can do is work on ourselves, and by really being completely aware and working with that awareness, then I think that's the best thing we can do. Until tomorrow will take care of itself, because it's going to be the same tomorrow, isn't it? How are you going to work tomorrow? Any better than you work today?
No, but I look at what you talk about, so eloquently, and I realize how short I come up. I don't want to do. I have two young kids at home. I'm tired. I don't do the dishes to the best of my ability. I don't clean the house to the best. So I feel so much when I devote myself to things that I love. I just realize inside introspectively, I say to myself, "You said you could be peeling potatoes." I said, "But did did McLaughlin, if you were being suppressed, if you were being blackballed in the industry, let's just say, and you knew you had the chops to play guitar and you were being blackballed and instead you had to sweep the streets, that's the part that it's like that credibility gap. It's that ability of saying, I'm, I don't even think I'm being treated fairly, but I'm still going to sweep the street. Did you ever have that opportunity? Because I left the interview, I said, McLaughlin he didn't have to sweep the street. He didn't have to do that.
Well, you don't know the reality of that situation. You don't know how many different jobs I had, do you?
No.
I mean, you don't. I mean, whether I was driving trucks, whether I was selling instruments, whether I was repairing instruments, whether I was selling cameras, whether I was selling caviar to the London hotels. I mean, any number of driving jobs I've had. But that's, this is just the jazz musicians thing. I never drove a taxi because I didn't have a license. But you see a lot of jazz musicians driving taxis. But I had a lot of jobs just to keep body and soul together.
Yeah.
Of course I did.
No, this is good to know.
But I don't regret it for a second. I think it's all important. Whatever happens to us is part of what should happen to us. You know what I'm saying? That's what I'm talking about. Surrender. If something happens to you, then in a way, it sounds hard, but you have to welcome it at some point, even what the rough things that happen to you. And I've had a lot of rough things happen to me. But of course, people look at me saying, "Oh yeah, it's a great career," but they don't really know the years prior to being publicly known. They don't know. They don't really care, to tell you the truth. No, it's all part of you, of whether it makes you or whether it breaks you. If you have enough perseverance and you care enough, it'll happen at some point. But this is it. We need these things because it's only out of adversity do we really find out what we're made of. Don't you think so?
Well, no, I agree, and I just like the fact that you can spell. I do care about hearing about the common jobs that you did, the common jobs that Carlos Santana had to do, all the jobs. That's humanity. And part of the problem with our society now is that if you don't seek, you believe that this stuff happens overnight. And I think it's so important for leaders
Oh,
like leaders like
no, it
yourself to
doesn't happen overnight.
no.
No.
But that's part of the issue is that I would ask you, what were some, like when Tony Williams, just take him as an example, can you talk about some of the leadership qualities that you feel are most important if you're going to be a leader of a musical group or just play jazz music in general? What are some of the things that you learned from these titans that you continue to?
Never ever did Tony speak, and in every band, and I've been a sideman in a lot of different bands. And the only time I ever got instructions was when I was a studio shark in London, and he has the record director, the producer come in and say, I want this kind of sound, I want that, I want more edgy sound, I want this, I want that, and they give instructions right, left, and center. But Miles, the only instructions he ever gave me we're in the studio was play it like you don't know how to play the guitar. I mean, you know what I'm saying?
No, you got to explain that. I don't understand that.
No, but it's not something you can logically understand. But Miles was for me, he was a very advanced human being. He was like a Zen master. This is kind of a Zen koan where I'm standing with this piece of music. I think I told you the story, and that's what he said. Because by doing that, he threw me out of my normal state of mind. which anyway you should be when you play music. You cannot be in an ordinary state of mind. You have to be you got to be kind of inspired. You need some kind of joy. You need some kind of exaltation, some inspiration. You need what basically deep inside everybody, but in music we have to be able to bring it out. And there are people like Miles, who I saw him do it to other people. I mean, I remember once, that question to me threw me out totally. I had no idea what I was doing when I started playing after that request. And yet, Miles loved it. That was in a silent way recording, and I can tell you I have no idea what I was doing until I heard the playback. So there you go. And I remember once he went to Jack DeJohnette. You were in the middle of a session, and he wasn't happy. Okay? So he stops the band, and he walks over to Jack. And Jack, he says, Jack, boom, bop, boom, boom, okay. Now, what do you make of that?
I mean, he was giving him
Exactly.
he was giving him a beat or something? Yeah, I don't
Exactly. Yeah, Miles, okay. and his playing changed radically from that point. You know, he just like cut loose. He freed right up. I mean, it was but that's the genius of Miles, someone like Miles. But never ever would he speak about leading or about guiding. You just had to watch him and see and understand what he was doing and how he was doing. Because on a lot of these sessions, Bitches Brew, classic example, Bitches Brew, in my candid opinion, Miles didn't know what he wanted. All the Bitches Brew recordings, he did not know what he wanted, but he knew very well what he did not want, and that was what he'd done in the past. And so that left the door wide open to all kinds of opportunities. You see what I'm saying?
I do. No, I really do. I really.
It's as important to know what you don't want as it is to know what you do. He was a classic example. And so I learned just being with him, just being his side man. I learned just watching him and being with him and playing with him. And him, the first gig I had, I don't know if I told you this story last time, where I was the first gig I ever did with him, greatest lesson in humility in my life. We finished the first set. I thought he played like a god. And we're sitting in the locker room, and he comes over to me, and he said, "Oh, John, I didn't play shit." You know, I mean, almost apologizing to me. I'm the young kid and just joined the band. You know, I'm this young white guy from Europe and just like overawed. I just thought he played like a god, and he came over to me and was like, and he didn't need to say that to me, but that's how sincere he was, and that's how dedicated he was, and because he knew I loved him, he knew I admired him for the last 12 years prior to meeting him, and he could feel that, and in a way, he wanted to live up to my expectations of him. You see what I'm saying? And when he was brutal, he was brutally critical of himself. He was critical of everybody, but he was critical most of all of himself. He demanded most from himself, and that was a beautiful thing. That's what made him great. He was not just a great musician; he was a great artist. His new conceptions, his directions, his forms. I mean, you know, and so I got lucky. I got to play with one of the great masters of that era. And so, of course, just being near him and hanging out with him, I was picking up all the time how to do it, how to see things. You see things through his eyes, and you see things differently. You hear things through his ears, and you hear things differently. This is how we learn. I think we have to pick up. But I think you've been doing it for years, Jake. You've been listening to harmony records, thousands and thousands. And in a way, you've been hearing how musicians hear and adopting your own kind of criteria. You know what I'm saying?
No, what I hear is, and Miles speaks to this, it's not conformity. It's not about conformity. It's about being yourself. Obviously you have
Absolutely,
that's it.
man.
But I can feel it. I'm a very sensitive person. I know I can hear it, and within the musical strata of today, that ability of DeJohnette to, like, when Miles went over to him and just mumbled a beat or whatever, the fact that it didn't get into DeJohnette's head. He was strong enough mentally to say, okay, now I'm outside, I'm in my own zone, I'm going to take it to a new level. It just seemed to me that, going back to to chemicals, substances, the drugs allowed you guys to have a lot of introspection. And it was really important because you were able to see inside yourself and see your shortcomings and know that while you were using substances to get to that point, it still allowed you the opportunity to say, I do need to improve. I need to be original. I need to be independent. I need to be unique. That's why all those unique sounds came out of that time period. Everybody, whether it was Tony Williams or Mickey Rourke or it didn't matter. Everybody had their own sound. And when I interviewed Dr. Bill Cosby, he said you could put on a blindfold and they could put a record on and he could tell you what drummer it was because everybody
Yeah.
wanted to be different. They didn't want to be the same. And you talked about Harlem before. And I interviewed a pianist, Larry Willis, last week, and he talked about the stifling of the culture. When you went to Harlem, all the stuff was out in the street. There were clubs everywhere. That music
Oh
was
yeah.
in your face. And
Yeah, I know.
now it's being stifled. Not in Europe maybe, but here in this country. And what Willis said to me was,
I know.
when you stifle the culture, anything.
I know. It's lamentable. It's just the only word I have for it. It's sad. And it's true. Europe, Europe's always been embraced jazz since the very beginning, and there are more jazz festivals, I think, in Germany than there are in America, and that's just one country. France also, lots of festivals. Portugal, Spain, Sweden, Norway, Russia. I mean, everywhere, everywhere. And a lot of Americans even make their living in Europe because it's recognized, and it's really sad for me because I don't know, I think I love America more than some Americans, even though I'm not even American, because I owe America so much. And America gave birth to this beautiful, marvelous art form that is so special and is so dear to my heart. And I was there last year. I did a tour last year. And really, I took my band over there. And you know what it was? It was a charity tour for poor Americans. Because I knew well beforehand that there would be no money made on this tour. But it's what are you going to do? I mean, okay, every now and then you can do a tour for free, but it's hard. Certainly, my musicians cannot. I have to. If I want to do it, I got to take that risk, and we did it simply because I wanted the band that I have at the moment, to play in America. We did. I mean, we didn't even leave the East Coast because I would have just been swimming in red ink. That's all. It would have been just too much for me. But we did the East Coast, and we had a nice 2 and 3 weeks over there. But and that, coupled with the fact I get a lot of mail from young players, I try to help the young players too. And I mean, I get some mail that's just, these guys are really suffering. They're suffering. The American situation, as far as jazz concerns, is really dramatic. It's dramatic. And I don't think we've had rock bottom yet, with the whole thing with the record industry, and because the record industry is tied up with the concert situation, the club situation. It's like the taste of people, especially in America, have changed, and people don't go to jazz clubs so much anymore. There are one or two, I know,
Mm-hmm.
but but it's a kind of lost tradition, and it's really a shame. It's really a shame. And the festivals. I mean, what do you have? You have the Playboy Festival. I don't know. Does it still exist out
Well,
in L.A.?
yeah, I think also the part of the issue is like we're so more multicultural, and yet there's a portion of our society that's so fearful of that. When you look at Miroslav Vitus and yourself, Aerto, um, all the guys from India coming over, all the cats, it just seemed to me that we were able to intermesh all this beautiful music at one time, and now it's really hard educationally to bridge gaps between Latinos who are being driven out because supposedly they're taking all our resources, and there's all this illegal immigration, and then we have this black president, and it's like the openness and the music came from love, and it came from people that understood, guys like Alan Douglas, who were businessmen, but also, I believe, and you correct me if I'm wrong, he respected the craft of the musician, and he let you guys create the music you wanted to create. And there's, and obviously you don't have enough venues for people to play at to get comfortable in front of playing in front of other people. And so, I mean, it can be analyzed
Yeah,
through.
yeah. I know. I mean, there were good sides to Alan Douglas. There was some less pleasant sides to him, but nevertheless, he gave me the opportunity to record under my own name, for which I should, I'm grateful. But the thing is, even though the actual situation is kind of sad, as we've been speaking about, Jake. Nevertheless, there's no crisis in music.
Hmm.
There's a crisis in the way people buy or take music. There's a crisis in the way the music is distributed. But there's no crisis. There's never been a crisis in music. The musicians love music as much as in the past, and will always, because music is the most beautiful of all faces. I don't know. I think somebody once said, if God has a face, then music is a face.
Hmm.
And I'm not alone in these feelings. And the level of musicianship today, and I'm talking about East and West, of the young players, phenomenal, Jake, wonderful. So I think we have to try to stay positive in spite of this pessimistic kind of situation that we have, because at some point, the people will break through. There will be some way in which musicians instrumentalists can develop their art. It's difficult. These years are very difficult, but out of this, I think something good will happen. There's always there's a good side and a bad side, but there is definitely a good side. We just haven't seen it yet, but I'm sure of it.
Well, no, and
I'm
that's
sure.
one reason,
It's just a question of time.
and that's one reason I reach out to you and to you cats, because you know what, everybody can feel that pervasive cynicism, but I reach you guys because you give me hope. And then when I can transcribe your quotes and put up the interviews, it gives other people hope for that day when it comes. And I hope that it will come in my children's lifetime. I don't know, but there is as we wrap up this sec.
You gotta have faith, Jake. It's like the whole thing about, are you gonna make it or you're not gonna make it? The whole thing is, how much do you love? And as Alice Coltrane said, how much you ready to suffer
Right.
for love? That's the big question right there. And as long as we're ready to assume, the pain that goes along with the love, then it's going to come out all right in the end. But you got to hold the faith, man. You got to hold the faith.
As we wrap
No
up,
matter how bleak it looks.
no. We're going to wrap up this section. I want to read you a quote from Billy Cobham, from my interview, and I wanted to get your response to it.
Hmm.
I was asking him about the origins of Mahavishnu Orchestra, and he said, it started with me and John in 1970 in Whitey Davis's Megaphone. No, I think it was Baggies. We were
Yeah, I'm
down.
sorry. You're gonna have to speak up a little bit, Jay.
I will, John. Don't worry, I will. So it says, John and I first met on a record date that Quincy Jones put together for Sean Connery's soundtrack titled The Anderson Tapes. He had four guitar players: McLaughlin, Herb Ellis, Eric Gale, and Jim Hall. Those were the four guitar players. Um, he said, conversations after that, you came up to him and said, I want to work on a couple of tunes. And you would call him and say, hey, what are you doing? And he'd say, oh, I'm having a cup of coffee. And you'd say, why don't you come over and bring your drums? I want to try out a couple of tunes. He said, I would just go there. I was living in the village. Most of us were, so we would walk. I didn't have anything else to do. Um, one day led to the next. After 10 days, he said, I want to try this band. He says we would start out playing around 10 in the morning. We'd have a couple of sandwiches for lunch. We'd play till 5 o'clock in the afternoon and wouldn't even know the sun went down. And he said two things popped up for me. I was not strong playing odd meters, and I wanted to get command of that. I was also playing a lot of notes and not controlling my breathing. I was really working on this, and John lent me a hand because he was really into yoga at that time. I started to understand yoga breathing, which is fundamentally playing within yourself, playing every note of the music in the same way you would have an everyday conversation with a best friend. So you're emotional, of course, but you never stop breathing. And then it goes on. I mean, the quote goes on and on and on, but it just, to me, can you take me back to that time of not even seeing the sun during the day and just working out those tunes? Because it was very organic, according to Billy.
Mm. That's beautiful.
I'm going
That's
to
really
email.
beautiful.
I'm going to
Yeah,
email you the whole
yeah.
quote. It's unbelievable.
He never mentioned anything like that to me personally. But the last time we played, I think I told you, it was in Switzerland a couple of years back when this band got stuck in Canada. They were supposed to open up to Roxy Music, and I was in Montreux, Switzerland. Billy lives near there. I got a call. Can you play? From Claude Nubb, the founder of the festival. And he said, I'll get Billy. And Billy and I, we went on stage and played those old tunes for 40 minutes off the top of our heads. And listen, and that kind of complicity goes back to those days, 1970, 1971 is when we came out, but we already were rehearsing at the end of 1970. Billy was something else. He was, that band, Mahavishnu Orchestra, began as a duo. He's right. Drums and guitar.
Right. That's what he says. I'm going to send you.
Wow.
I'm going to send
That's
you.
so nice you said that.
I'm going to
very
send you
touched.
I'm going to send Ina the whole quote because I didn't even read. He just said that it was already starting before with these impromptu sessions with with Miroslav and Zawinul and Chick and maybe Coriel. I mean, it's just like, to me, the idea of you guys sitting there having a couple of tuna sandwiches, I'm like, I just put me in that apartment building. You guys didn't even see the sun come up, man. But yet he looks back on it and he says, what did I learn from that? How did I get to the point where I could play a 20-minute improvisational jam in front of sweaty college students? And he was like, I have to figure out my breathing. And that's why I originally went with the yoga thing with you, because I said, John was practicing this, but how did he get to that point where he was able to control himself during these sort of really volatile experiences? Beautiful, but
Oh,
very,
yeah.
it's really
Oh,
quite
yeah.
remarkable.
That's the truth. No, but it's true. But Billy was there just every step of the way. I mean, I think that was really what made the whole thing work, was me and Billy. But by the time the other musicians came in, me and Billy were already tight. I mean, we spent hours, days together, just playing. just jamming. I mean, it was fantastic. But the thing is, the way we look at it now, retrospectively, is very different. In those days, we were just like, wow, man, this is play,
Mm-hmm.
But there was so much energy
Mm-hmm.
and love, really,
Mm-hmm.
in the heart, and Billy's heart and my heart, and just the joy of playing. And in the end, you cannot better that, can you? Just the joy of playing, and the joy of playing with somebody you love. In music, if you don't love the people you're playing with, it's not going to work. Music can only talk about love. That's it. Nothing else. You try to get angry in music, that can work for a minute, and then it falls flat. I know, I've seen it, and I've had it.
You've
too.
had it, right? I bet you've had it.
I mean, when just, some weird things happen on stage. I remember a guy at Yale University in Connecticut. 1971. There's a guy who was completely out of his brain. He with long hair and a beard. He walked on stage naked, and he had a big machete in his hand, walking towards me. I mean, fortunately, the guards got him down before he made it to me.
Oh my gosh!
But he would have decapitated me on stage live. And then when I went backstage, I saw my jacket was hanging up. I saw what he'd done to my jacket. Holy moly!
Oh my, that is shocking.
Those days were pretty crazy too. Yeah.
Apparently.
Yeah.
John, listen, I'm gonna go away on assignment for a while and try to evolve.
Yeah.
And
Anyway, well, it was a real pleasure. I hope you got something of interest and value for your magazine, and let me know if it works out.
well, what I was gonna say to you is I'm gonna go away for a while, but in the fall. I will reach out. There's a few more things
Okay.
I would like to talk to you about. John, you've already uh, helped me a lot, and I'm still working on surrender, my friend. But thank you, and I'll reach out to you later
Let
on.
me tell you, there's just one thing, because I got to play for the Dalai Lama once, and I got to meet him, and I got his blessings, and then he gave a talk after. I'll just tell you the first thing he said. Don't forget it. He said, people say that my religion is Buddhism. Wrong. My religion is happiness. Isn't that beautiful? Straight down the line.
Have a great summer, my friend. I'll talk to you soon.
You too. So long, Jake.
All right, John.
Bye.
Bye-bye. This is the Jake Feinberg Show, and we'll see you all in a little bit.